Welcome to the Anchored Blind podcast. I'm Michael,
And I'm Kristen.
and today we are going to talk about something really
Spicy?
hot
All of those things?
because we're talking about sex.
That's right.
So, I don't know if we ever would have planned on this topic, but I think it's really important because a lot of what we do with our clients every day leads to sex.
Yeah. Intimacy stems from all of those areas.
And all of those areas inform intimacy. So, I think one of the best places to start, at least when I think of some of the couples I work with and just some of the struggles that they experience, the first thing that comes to mind for me in regards to barriers of their sex is emotional disconnection.
Why?
Well, if they're aware of their own emotions, which can be hit or miss, they're definitely not aware of each other's. And if they're not aware of each other's, they're not aware of their needs. And if they're not aware of each other's needs, there's going to be disconnection. And when I hear disconnection, and I'll stop here, it's usually you don't understand me. You don't see me. I don't feel heard. I don't feel appreciated. There's a lack of trust. There's even a lack of commitment.
Maybe even I don't know myself enough to repair this completely or to emotionally
Yeah.
become more intimate or have that connection. I can say I've experienced that myself in the past, like not
Mm.
knowing my own needs well enough to really feel what that repair is like
Yep.
emotionally. And that's very limiting because not knowing your own needs and really stuffing your own needs, you never really you don't you don't have that access from the other person and that connection.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point because it's very dangerous territory for someone to not be aware of their own needs. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about them being able to experience an orgasm. We're talking about before we
Mhm.
even reach the orgasmic cycle, which side
Not in
note,
the bedroom, really.
not in
This
the
is
bedroom.
outside, yeah.
No, it's actually by the leading researchers, they say foreplay starts in the
In the
kitchen in the
kitchen.
morning.
That's right.
So it's well before that. And, men and women have their own different experiences, which actually is true. But the point is, if people are not aware of their own individual needs to where they feel connected. So if I were to say, hey, do you feel connected to your spouse? They should be able to say yes. And then I would ask, well, what contributes to that? And they would say, well, they support me in this way, or they listen intentionally, or we have this quality time together. So it could be love languages, it could be something around their temperament or their personality or that season of life. Whatever it is, and it can change from time to time, it's something that we're aware of and we actually talk about on a regular basis just to make sure, are we on the same page? Are we working together? Because that is intimacy
Mhm.
and that leads to better sex. So I'll give you an example. I work with a lot of men, and a lot of these men, if they don't have awareness of their own needs, men can be very prideful. We like to,
So can women.
fair, we like to do things on our own and we like to be self sufficient. We like to not be dependent on anyone else. And the danger there, especially in the context of a marriage, is sure, you might be, this badass guy who's independent and gets things done. But if you don't need your wife, you're eventually going to turn to things like porn, masturbation. You might even be scrolling Instagram innocently. You might be looking at that attractive girl jogging on the sidewalk a little too long. So it's just going to lead to these sneaky behaviors, which are all driven by a lack of emotional connection, disconnection. And it's because you're not getting what you need from your partner at home.
But that process of figuring out what you need
Mhm.
is hard for most people, I imagine.
It is. It's why we have jobs.
Yeah. And you guys do a lot of that in the therapy room
We
with
do.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can empathize with all of that. I think that hits home for me for sure. And what I've really experienced in our marriage is you leading in that way because you're more aware of needs as a therapist. This is what you've studied. This is what you do with people all the time. I feel like you've done a great job in our marriage leading in that way and being an example of understanding your own needs and learning how to prioritize those while also not disconnecting, saying, this is just what I need. And I think for me, as someone who didn't come into the marriage aware of what I needed emotionally, I think that it really challenged me. And it made me uncomfortable at first, but it really taught me on the back end that I need to be doing that for myself, that I need to figure out what are my needs so that at the end of our conversation, I can feel truly emotionally repaired and connected to you. And, I think I didn't know what that felt like coming
Yeah.
in, but learning it, it's a complete 180, and it's really cool that a conversation can really feel, I guess reparative is the word, but
Yeah, connecting.
yeah, fully
Let's
connecting.
let's do this. Let's drill down into some of the specifics, and then let's find a segue that can connect us to nutrition because I think
Mhm.
that's a huge piece of
It
this as
is.
well. So, getting into our specifics, for you to support me means so much. I feel understood. I feel respected. I feel loved.
What does
And
support feel?
support, like the other day, this is so embarrassing. I was running late for my morning session, and you anticipated that because you know me and you made me breakfast and you had it waiting on the counter. And like when I saw that plate of food, I, of course, like, this is too good to be true. Is that really for me? You have 3 kids. You crush the morning routine. I'm inconsistent. And here you are just showing up. And I felt very loved
Mm.
and just thought of. And so that walking out the door, even though I give you a quick kiss goodbye and rush to the session and my long day, and you have yours, right? But you still made time for that. That made me feel like a priority. That made me feel understood. And you anticipated my needs,
And those are some of your core
which was
needs.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I left the morning, diving into my long day and just feeling very connected to you because of that, because of
Mm.
the choice you made and because of how you know me. And then if I know you in a very similar way, when I am in tune with the flow of our home, when I anticipate your needs and aware of acts of service that help you, and even if I'm not actually doing them, but if I'm aware of what you're doing and I show you appreciation because you are fierce and constantly productive and efficient. And I think when you just know that I see it and speak to it, it makes you feel seen and loved and appreciated, and that leads to you feeling connected. So these pieces of awareness they've taken us years, I think,
Mhm.
to not only get even language around it, but
And then
practice it.
accept them,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
I
Be
probably
aware of it.
denied my need for,
You didn't want
um
to be dependent.
yeah, and I didn't want really to need somebody to say like, "Hey, wow, I noticed all that you
You
did."
chipped away at that pride over
Yeah.
time. Yeah. But it's been really cool to build these disciplines, these practices, the awareness, which is key, and then to get to this place where it's like, all right, now that we know what connection feels like, we need to protect that because at the beginning and the end of the day and throughout the day, it is the most important thing for our relationship, for our marriage. It's one of the best things we can model for our kids.
Mhm.
And yes, it leads to better sex.
Sex.
Leads to sex at all. So when I think of how, at least for me, for example, you even making breakfast, it might be meaningless to some people that, okay, well, great, you had some food in the morning. But for me, that was an investment in my health. It was an investment in my mood. I was able to have energy and sustain
Mhm.
and be able to walk into the day, and at the same time, it represented you loving me really well. So that's a part of our relationship, but then functionally, practically, I'm kinda wondering when you cook something like that for me or for yourself or for our kids, how does it relate to sex?
Oh, well, nutritionally, we can get there. But I think I had a question before we move
Oh,
on to
sure,
that, which
sorry.
was it's fine. We were in a you and I were in a conversation with a couple the other day, and I was able to really relate to this individual because I'm not used to understanding my own needs, knowing my own needs, and how much they relate to how connected we are. And we had a couple ask us the other day, we're having trouble. One of us doesn't know our needs that well. And we
Mm,
feel like we're pretty consistently denying our needs, or I don't know how to understand her needs. And we think this is playing a part in our marriage and our conflicts. And that person was like, "How do you figure that out? How do you learn more about your needs? I mean, besides sitting in the therapy room, are there resources? Are there places that you suggest people go? Are there ways to learn about this with your partner? Is there ways to look at it in a more curious way, to partner together in that?"
it's interesting while you're talking, when I think of needs, like, so many things come to mind because it does start with a level of awareness And then it requires a certain level of vulnerability to
Mhm.
even express your desires because some of our desires, we think they can be a little weird.
Or
And
high
we might,
maintenance or
yeah, needy. We might feel shame around some of these
Mhm.
desires, but it's actually the very risk of taking this vulnerable chance of rejection or judgment. And that's what the fear is, right? It's protecting us from that pain. But if we can move through that and remember, oh yeah, I committed my life to this person, at least ideally, and I'm trusting that they're going to receive my desire well, at least with curiosity, or hopefully if there's any resistance, we can work through it. And it when you frame it that way, it almost doesn't matter if it's a desire in the bedroom, like for something to feel good or safe or comfortable, arousing, or if it's a desire outside of the bedroom and it's, hey, thanks for making me breakfast because it just makes my day way easier. Believe it or not, all of that is actually connected because ultimately, when you look at a couple coming together sexually, it's them becoming one flesh,
Mhm.
as certain wisdom tells us, like from the Bible. And so when that one flesh happens, those two people know each other on an intimate level. And that's not just when we're naked. It's also when we're going through our day and really supporting one another because at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, who else is going to?
Yeah. Yeah, I can say that probably before we, got into marriage and really dove into it, we had to learn a lot our first couple years in
I think it was
marriage.
a lot of experimenting of like what works and what doesn't work for each of us.
I think I can remember feeling more comfortable actually on the side of disconnection than actually on
Yeah.
reaching towards connection with you. To me, that vulnerability, that putting desires out there, that it's extremely uncomfortable, especially in a new marriage or in one that where you've kind of lived on opposite ends for a while, right? When you say it's just a very risky, vulnerable thing to do at first, but it's
Yeah.
also the most impactful. I mean, I can now say that I feel very uncomfortable with disconnection between in our marriage, like that you and I are constantly chasing that connection and
Right.
protecting that, so it's worth it.
Yeah. And you're actually hitting on some wisdom that comes from a type of therapy a lot of us in our office use called exposure therapy.
Mm,
And it's just this idea that you can't become comfortable with something until you've been exposed to it a certain number of times.
mm,
And so the idea is you take these baby steps, and I really think you can do this in marriage, but I'm going to take small risks to get more comfortable with sitting in the water, so to speak, get used to the temperature.
mhm,
And as I see and experience, because it's not just a logical thing. Like, okay, now I know I can take risks. It's literally this experience of your nervous system that keeps you safe. It's your limbic system that remembers and feels and dispatches fear. So it's this total physiological experience of you taking a risk of this again, judgment or rejection. And it's saying, okay, I think I'm feeling a little safer now that I know my spouse is okay with this desire that I was scared might be a little strange
mhm,
or too needy or something like that.
mhm,
And again, incrementally, I'm taking these risks. I'm trusting and I'm feeling more safe. And then now, before I know it, I can move into maybe these more covert desires. And then this is to me, this is the arrival point. This is the goal. I have nothing to hide anymore
right,
from my spouse. That's to me total freedom. That's love. That
mhm.
is unconditional acceptance. And I really, truly believe it's possible.
Me too.
So just imagining getting in that place with your spouse, how do you think the sex would be?
Right. Like the sex comes from the emotional intimacy rather than the sex driving the emotional intimacy.
I think otherwise you're risking sex just being transactional. I will say that all roads lead to Rome and that you some couples may experience, let's say a lack of awareness in their emotional needs and that may not be their starting point. They actually may feel more comfortable starting with their desires in the bedroom. And as they become safer
Mm,
in that experience, that may help them feel ready to explore some things outside of the bedroom.
that makes sense.
It can go both ways.
Interesting. So on the other side, how does nutrition even play into this is one of the questions.
Well, I guess you could incorporate like chocolate into sexual activity or something like that.
Yeah, you
Is that
can
what
get
you mean?
creative. No, but what we do to take care of ourselves impacts how we show up for the other person. It impacts how we feel, which impacts our reactivity, which impacts our confidence, which impacts the ability for us to prioritize ourselves and speak up for what we need. So, how we take care of ourselves nutritionally is huge in the way it impacts our ability to emotionally connect, when you say.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've experienced when I'm not on my nutritional game, like if I've over caffeinated, for example, or let's say I haven't had enough food and I'm kind of hangry.
Or eating too
Um,
much.
yeah, I've done that too. That our favorite Italian meal or something like that. Like it does affect your mood. It affects your energy.
Your approachability.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I've along this journey in being married to you and protecting emotional intimacy and being an approachable individual in a marriage, in a family unit, I've realized how important self-care is and that it's really like a selfless thing and it's not selfish because we really have to take care of ourselves first or else we run out of fuel
Hmm.
and we're not there at the end of the day. We're not approachable. We're not, physically and mentally able to decompress with our partner in any way.
This may seem totally random, but it's something I hear in my room, and this may just be like a brief topic. And we didn't plan on talking about this, but one thing that comes up pretty often with my couples and some of the guys I work with is alcohol. And what's really interesting is it's one of those, let's call it a form of medication or a supplement
Mhm.
that is not black or white. So some of them will say, well, alcohol, removes my inhibition, it lowers my anxiety,
Yeah.
it allows me to feel a little bit more loose and like confident. And then before I know it, like that helps me perform. And so we'll get into like, okay, well, do you want to be dependent on that forever? And of course, that's like our first step in maybe reducing this level of dependence on alcohol before they have sex or engage in anything like that. But I also noticed another correlation where a lot of couples have increased conflict around their drinking patterns. So around like that Friday or Saturday night when a lot of people are starting to consume alcohol, everything that was buried in their limbic system before, so any of those little things that we've swept
Mhm.
under the rug throughout the week, the month, maybe they've been holding on to this stuff for years. Alcohol just almost gives them permission to let loose, and any of that stored up emotion is just coming out like a volcano, and they definitely are not having sex that night.
So it really gets in the way of connection.
Yeah, and not to bring food, or in this case, alcohol, back to emotions and relationship stuff, but I think it's just another example that it's all really interconnected and that putting something into our body is not simply just gonna help us improve our performance and get us to the goal line. It's like playing with fire in some cases.
Yeah, and really taking care of ourselves when we look at relationship is a responsibility for the relationship to really
Yeah,
thrive.
say more on that.
Well, I mean, like you said earlier, like when we get married, we become one, and it becomes really important how we show up at the end of the day. Like when you look at the start, the middle, and the end of the day, like we work so hard to get up and showered and dressed and and caffeinated for our day. When really, when we see our partners, when we see our family, is towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
But if we're not taking care of ourselves in a way that allows our blood sugars to be stable throughout the day, or allows us to decompress without substances that make us more tired, or when when we have filled up really heavily at dinner so that we feel exhausted from what we ate instead of energized by what we ate. These are all things that we're kind of responsible for in order to protect that very valuable and
Yeah.
short amount of our day that's with our
I like how
partner.
you frame that because what I hear is nutritional mismanagement is selfish. You're not thinking about your
In a
partner.
relationship, it really
Yeah, and
is.
then when you have kids, you're definitely not thinking about them.
Yeah.
You're thinking about what just gets you through the day or makes you feel better, but
Mhm.
it comes at a cost.
If I over-caffeinate, which I'm, sensitive to caffeine a little bit more, but if I over-caffeinate, it's selfish because really it gets powers me through a short part of the day, and I crash afterwards, and who am I to my kids once I've crashed? Who am I at the end of the day
Mhm.
if I can't even keep my eyes open through dinner, or I'm just completely, unable to connect and have a conversation and catch up on our day with you. That's not me protecting our relationship. That's me really sacrificing it at the expense of getting something done during the day.
And there's a point of grace, right? Because you had to experience some of these instances to even learn that about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a journey. But figuring out how you can take care of yourselves in order to protect the relationship is huge. And nutrition and food and even just figuring out healthy ways to decompress without alcohol or without TV or things that allow you to take care of yourself to show up better in those last hours is a big part of it.
Yeah. So let's kind of land the plane and talk about what is the journey, let's say, of a healthy couple towards a day, maybe even a week towards having good sex. What I would say, just like we talked about earlier, a couple who starts with connection in the morning. And so that may mean, some of this may be a little romanticized, but these are things that some of my couples practice. These are some of these things we practice. They wake up in the morning and I kid you not, they start with some eye contact. They maybe hold hands. There's some type of connecting activity.
Make each other a cup of coffee.
Make each other a cup of coffee is very popular.
Or
Yeah.
even just
Serving
asking,
each other
can
in some
like,
way.
if
Yeah.
that other person wants one is a big reach
Yeah.
sometimes.
I'm thinking of you.
Mhm.
Yep. You're a priority. You're cared for. Some couples will devote those minutes, like especially if you have kids like we do, that time in the morning before anyone wakes up is sacred. Can we just check in? Like there's a marriage meeting template that we give some of our couples, and we'll start with a few appreciations like, hey, I was so exhausted yesterday. I just want to circle back. Thank you just for doing all the dishes because there were a ton yesterday. Or thanks for taking care of the kids. And it was a really significantly tough day. Even if it wasn't, I just noticed and thank you.
Like, I know you'll get out of bed earlier if you know that we can sit together for 20 minutes and have a cup of
Oh, yeah.
coffee.
Because it's well, I know that now because we've done it and it's
Mhm.
but before that, I don't know if you could have sold me on it because man, I
That's
love
true.
sleep.
Yeah.
But in this meeting, yeah, the appreciations, the to-dos. Hey, when's our next date night? Or what do we need to get done today as a family or in our business? Or
Mhm.
how do we support each other? Are there any issues that we need to circle back to? And if not now, when's our plan to come back to them?
Or just
What are our
facing
plans?
yeah,
Yeah.
plans, facing the day together. Like, I know when we get to sit there in the morning and have a
Yeah.
cup of coffee and say, like, "What's on your agenda today? How can I support you?" Like,
Or
that sounds like a really hard
one of my
day.
favorite ones that I like to give you a hard time with is, hey, is there anything that you've planned with your family that you haven't told me about yet?
I'm terrible about that.
Yep. I love being in the dark. So that's always fun. But then throughout the day, assuming traditional model, man and or woman go to work, these days it can be 50-50, right?
Mhm.
But let's say we're going to go off into our own directions. And what does that look like as far as staying connected? Are there going to be any text check-ins? Are we going to have like a little lunch date, maybe a call or a FaceTime? Hopefully at least some touch point, just like, hey, I'm thinking about you. How's your day going? Something like that. A ritual, a tradition, even better if it's kind of a routine. And then at the end of the day, one of my favorite images to give some of our couples is when you come home, like again, traditional model, let's say the wife's already home, she's handling kids. If you guys have kids, husband comes in and the kids rush to the husband. It's a classic picture. Well, the husband, not that he's going to Heisman the kids, but hopefully he's going to go to his wife and give her at least a 20-second hug, which will release some oxytocin. Oxytocin's a nice bonding chemical that is actually a great prelude to sex.
Mm,
I'm going to feel closer from doing a long hug. Guess what the kids experience when they see their parents embracing for a little bit of time?
connection.
Yeah, they're getting connection modeled for them.
Mhm.
It's super healthy to see that prioritized with their parents. And then before you know it, we are hopefully dividing and conquering, tag teaming, some type of us sharing the load, sharing awareness of what needs to happen so that we can all wind down and prepare for sleep because sleep, hands down, is the best medicine for the brain.
Mhm.
And everything really flows from that. So, how do we make sure we're protecting that all for each other? And not every night's gonna be perfect. It's certainly not perfect in our home. Schedules fluctuate. We forget, we get tired, we get lazy, but still, the point is we return to these priorities. And if we miss, we're going to speak to them, we're going to prepare, we're going to recover. And all that leads to easier connection
Yeah.
to where, I mean,
You're not really working for it in the bedroom. It's already that connection is already
you're
there.
not.
Yeah.
You should already get into bed knowing that if I make an attempt, whether it's male or female, and
It will be
typically
received.
and so many guys are like, "I wish my wife would initiate." Well, it's just not that common. I should probably go ahead and say that.
Mm,
It's just not. Most men are the ones having to initiate, especially in the childhood years, the parenting years. But anyway, the point is we should know, even if, like, let's say stereotypically the guy is gonna make an attempt and initiate, he should already know
it should
that.
be clear.
Yeah, and if it's a no-go that night, it's probably gonna be an obvious reason because we've done the work to stay connected, and
Mhm.
it doesn't stop that night, even if it's a no-go, because connection is perpetual.
Yeah, so the bedroom's just a result of what's happened that day, and
Truly.
yeah,
At least it should be. But to your point earlier, sometimes it's a way to reconnect, sometimes it's a repair, sometimes, we don't even know what to say, but we know how to touch each other, and we know how to please each other, and that's a way to reconnect, and
yeah,
and then maybe we talk about it, and vulnerably, we've had those moments where maybe we're so upset at each other that we just need to reconnect physically, sexually,
and then the words
and
follow.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we're in a more regulated state, and we can talk about what we need to talk about.
Yeah. So I guess that's just to encourage others that there doesn't have to be pressure on figuring out the right words. It can
Or order of events,
order of
yeah.
events, yeah. Cool. So there's really hope in that connection can be easier, connection can be more powerful, and that there doesn't have to be so much pressure on
Yeah,
making the bedroom better. It can
mhm.
come from the work that happens
Yeah, it's
on a
all
deeper level.
like I think we often say with other topics that we discuss, everything's connected.
Yeah.
And, not to well, I am gonna sell our services here. I believe that when you are taking steps, whether it's in community, whether it's in therapy, and you're doing things that support your emotional and relational health inside and outside of the home, when you are investing in your physical health and maintaining a certain level of strength and endurance, cardiovascular health, when you are putting things in your body that do not promote inflammation,
Love
that
you back.
yes,
Foods that love you back.
foods that love you back.
Yeah.
When you are doing those things, and we do that at Anchored Mind, and I think we do that really well, you are going to leave ready to have great sex. So if you're in a place where you desire to connect more sexually, or it's just not as much as you hope for, there's a few things that we would recommend. And this is based on our experience, but it's also based on the work that we've done with many couples. That is, let's start by taking a risk. Take a risk by communicating your needs, your desires, and then as you're learning these needs and desires with each other, start to practice anticipating them, get ahead of them. And lastly, and I would argue most importantly, once you are in a place of connection, protect it at all costs. Even if things don't work out that day, that night, it will come back around when you protect the connection. So give these a try. Let us know how it's going. And we look forward to hearing more about what is working for you.